Thank you for everything, all the love, all the support in the whole motherfucking West Coast one time. All right.
Take me through that, take me through that.
No one is talking about this, but they should. Because behind the glitz, behind the headlines, and behind the viral clips, there's a much deeper story brewing. A story that ties together lawsuits, hip-hop history, loyalty, betrayal, contracts, and even the role of love in shielding a superstar from collapse. And at the center of it all? Nelly. Yes, the same Nelly who dominated the early 2000s with diamond-selling albums, chart-topping hits, and unforgettable anthems. But this time, the spotlight isn't about the music, it's about the drama surrounding the St. Lunatics team, the lawsuit that nearly destroyed him, and the surprising role Ashanti played in saving his legacy. It all started with whispers of money disputes. The St. Lunatics, Nelly's childhood crew from St. Louis, were supposed to be a brotherhood, a team that rose together, fought together, and won together. But as fame exploded, so did the cracks. Members felt Nelly wasn't giving them their fair share. They signed contracts in the early days, thinking they would eat off the success of the movement forever. But when the checks stopped matching the expectations, resentment built. That's when lawyers came in. And suddenly, Nelly wasn't just the golden boy of St. Louis. He was a target. But here's where it gets interesting. According to Katt Williams, who is never afraid to spill the raw, unfiltered truth, the St. Lunatics thought they had a case. They believed they could drag Nelly to court and force a payout. But what they didn't count on was the very contract they signed years ago. Hidden in the fine print, tucked inside the clauses, was a bombshell. They didn't actually have the right to sue him for what they were demanding. And once the lawyers combed through it, the case crumbled before it could even reach trial. And then came Ashanti. Yes, the woman who went from Nelly's on-again, off-again girlfriend to his wife, to the mother of his child, turned out to be a pivotal figure in this story. Katt Williams says her presence, her influence, and even her timing were part of the reason the St. Lunatics dropped the charges. Why? Because Nelly wasn't just a bachelor rapper anymore. He was a family man. That changes everything. The optics, the headlines, the way the public perceives you. It's a shield. And that shield worked. Katt explained it like this. Once Nelly married Ashanti and had their baby, the noise of social media harassment started to die down. People could no longer just throw dirt on his name without backlash. The narrative shifted from selfish superstar to husband and father. And the St. Lunatics, once banking on dragging him through the mud, now looked like bitter men fighting against a family man trying to protect his wife and child. Public opinion is everything, and in this case, it helped dismantle the lawsuit before it could even begin. But Katt didn't stop there. He dropped another explosive statement. He compared Nelly's situation to Jay-Z. That's right. He claimed that what's been keeping Jay-Z safe from the feds, safe from scrutiny, and safe from the same kind of conspiracies that plague others in the industry is the fact that Jay-Z built a family empire with Beyoncé. When you're tied to stability, when you project love and legacy instead of scandal and excess, suddenly the wolves back off. Now think about that for a moment. Katt Williams is suggesting that the ultimate protection in this industry isn't just lawyers or contracts, it's family. It's marriage. It's children. It's the image of stability that shields you from predators looking to cash in on your downfall. If that's true, then Ashanti didn't just save Nelly emotionally. She saved him financially, legally, and reputationally. And yet there's still a dark underbelly here. Because if Nelly is protected by contracts and family optics, what does that say about the industry as a whole? What does it mean that brotherhoods can crumble, that childhood friends can turn into courtroom enemies, and that only the fine print keeps you from losing it all? The St. Lunatics may have walked away, but did they really lose? Or are they just waiting for the next opportunity? This story is only just beginning. Because Katt Williams has never been known to mince words, and if he's pointing fingers at both Nelly and Jay-Z, you can be sure more names will surface, and more truths will be exposed. When Katt Williams speaks, people listen, not just because he's a comedian, but because he's a truth teller in an industry built on smoke and mirrors. And in this case, his insight into Nelly's legal drama with the St. Lunatics cuts deep. He didn't just talk about the lawsuit. He broke down the psychology behind why it all went down. The St. Lunatics weren't just some random associates. They were family, childhood friends who stood shoulder to shoulder with Nelly when nobody believed in them. And yet, when money enters the picture, everything changes. It's the oldest story in the music industry. Fame divides. Some shine brighter, others fade into the background. And suddenly, what was once loyalty turns into resentment. For the St. Lunatics, Nelly's diamond plaques meant they wanted a bigger slice. But as Katt pointed out, they overlooked one thing: the ink on the contract. According to insiders, the contracts they signed were airtight. Nelly wasn't cutting corners, he was running a business. And the Lunatics, though hurt and disappointed, had legally agreed to the terms years ago. That's why their case didn't hold water. They wanted equality in earnings, but the paperwork only guaranteed them equality in opportunity. Two very different things, and when that realization hit, their legal push collapsed like a house of cards. But here's where the plot thickens. Katt Williams didn't just say Ashanti was part of the reason charges were dropped. He said she was a game changer. Why? Because her relationship with Nelly symbolized maturity, stability, and growth. Suddenly, Nelly wasn't just a rapper with flashy chains and hit singles. He was a husband, a father, a man protecting his household. That image made it nearly impossible for critics to paint him as the villain. And fans noticed. Social media lit up with posts praising Ashanti's influence. People began saying things like, "Ashanti saved Nelly from himself," and "That's why you need a strong woman by your side." Whether you believe it or not, perception is power. And in this case, Ashanti gave Nelly the power to shut down critics without even opening his mouth. Now, let's circle back to Katt's comparison to Jay-Z. This wasn't a random statement. It was strategic. Katt knows the industry inside and out. And when he said Jay-Z has stayed safe from federal scrutiny because of Beyoncé and their family image, he was exposing a blueprint. Think about it. Countless rappers from that era have faced investigations, indictments, and scandals. But Jay-Z? He's untouchable. Why? Because when you're sitting next to Beyoncé at the Grammys, raising kids, and projecting Black excellence, you're not an easy target. So is Nelly following that same playbook? By marrying Ashanti, starting a family, and presenting himself as a man of legacy instead of drama, has he unlocked the same level of protection? According to Katt Williams, yes. And that's why the St. Lunatics' attempt to drag him through the mud failed so spectacularly. They weren't just fighting a rapper, they were fighting a family man. But let's not sugarcoat it. The Lunatics still feel betrayed. Some of them have gone on interviews, hinting at unfinished business. They may not have a legal case, but resentment is a powerful motivator. And if history has taught us anything, it's that old wounds in the music business rarely stay buried. Could there be a part 2 to this saga? Because here's the thing. Lawsuits may end, but grudges don't. If the St. Lunatics feel Nelly owes them, even if the law says otherwise, they could find other ways to make their feelings known. Diss tracks, tell-all books, messy social media posts. This industry thrives on drama. And if Nelly's not careful, this old beef could resurface in a much uglier way. For now, though, Katt Williams made it clear. Ashanti's presence and the fine print in those contracts saved Nelly's career. But the bigger question is this: how long can love, family, and paperwork protect you in a business built on betrayal? Stay with me, because in the next section we're diving deeper into Ashanti's role. How her image, her brand, and her presence in Nelly's life have completely rewritten the narrative around him. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Ashanti's story in this saga isn't just about romance, it's about power. And Katt Williams was careful to point that out. When he said that Nelly's marriage and baby with Ashanti helped shield him from harassment, he was pointing at something much bigger. Ashanti's brand has always been one of resilience, elegance, and grace. And now she's lent that image to her husband. Let's not forget, Ashanti has been through her own battles. The music industry didn't always treat her kindly. From label disputes to being overshadowed at times by male counterparts, she's had to fight tooth and nail to reclaim her place as an R&B queen. but fight she did. And today, she's more respected than ever, not just as a performer, but as a woman who's handled every storm with poise. So when she stood beside Nelly during this tense chapter, it wasn't just about love. It was about credibility. Think about the timing. The lawsuit drama with the St. Lunatics bubbled just as Nelly was reintroducing himself to a new generation of fans, while Ashanti was experiencing a massive resurgence in her career. The Versus battle, the new music, the tours. Ashanti had the spotlight again. By aligning himself with her, Nelly wasn't just seen as an aging rapper trying to hold on to fame. He was part of a power couple. And in today's culture, that matters. Fans immediately noticed the shift. Where once Nelly's headlines were filled with criticism or nostalgia, suddenly they became filled with admiration. Clips of him holding Ashanti's hand, standing beside her at events, or gushing about their baby began circulating. The internet went from questioning his choices to celebrating his growth. And all of that happened because Ashanti's presence reframed the narrative. Katt Williams hinted at this when he said Ashanti's influence prevented Nelly from becoming a punching bag on social media. He wasn't exaggerating. In this era, perception is reality. When people see you as reckless, they treat you like a target. When they see you as a man who stands for family, loyalty, and love, they give you grace. Ashanti gave Nelly that grace, and she did it just by being who she is. But here's the twist. Ashanti isn't just a silent partner in this. She's vocal. She's made it clear that no one should disrespect her son, that their child is not a mistake, and that their family is off limits. That fiery side of her, combined with her reputation for elegance, has made her the perfect shield for Nelly. Critics know if they come for him, they'll also have to deal with her, and fans won't tolerate that. And that's exactly why the St. Lunatics lawsuit couldn't thrive. Imagine trying to position yourself as the victims when the public sees Nelly as a man building a family with a woman like Ashanti. It's not just a losing legal battle, it's a losing PR battle. And in today's world, the PR war is often more important than the courtroom war. What Katt Williams revealed then isn't just gossip, it's strategy. He's saying that in hip-hop, family can be as powerful as contracts, maybe even more so. Because while a lawyer can defend you in court, a family image can defend you in the court of public opinion. And once the people are on your side, everything else starts falling into place. But here's the cliffhanger. Can love and image truly protect you forever? Or is this just a temporary shield? After all, the industry is ruthless and old beefs rarely die quietly. Could the St. Lunatics, or even other figures in the game, be waiting for the right moment to strike again? Hold on to that thought, because in the next section, we're breaking down exactly how dangerous the entertainment industry becomes when old allies turn into enemies, and why Nelly's fight might not be over yet. The St. Lunatics weren't just collaborators, they were brothers. At least that's how the story began. Coming out of St. Louis in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were supposed to be the hometown heroes who broke through the industry's gatekeeping. And for a while, it looked like the dream had come true. Nelly went solo and became a superstar, but he always carried the St. Lunatics name on his back. But here's the thing about fame. It doesn't just elevate you, it separates you. Suddenly, Nelly wasn't just one of the guys. He was the guy. The deals, the awards, the money, it all poured in for him faster than the group could keep up. That's where the cracks began to form. And when money enters the picture, friendship starts turning into business. And business? That's where things get ugly. Katt Williams emphasized something chilling. The lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal. Members of the St. Lunatics felt like Nelly had eaten from a table they helped set but never passed the plate back around. They wanted equal recognition, equal pay, equal footing. But the contracts they signed told a different story. Those papers didn't grant them what they thought they deserved. And that's where the bitterness began boiling over. And let's be real, the entertainment industry thrives on that kind of bitterness. Rivalries make headlines. Conflict drives clicks. The narrative of the superstar who abandoned his day ones practically writes itself. If Nelly hadn't been careful, the lawsuit could have been used not just in court, but in the press, to destroy his reputation. This is where Ashanti and the baby changed the game again. Instead of being painted as a selfish star who left his people behind, Nelly was now seen as a family man under attack. That simple shift in perception stripped the St. Lunatics case of its emotional punch. They weren't David fighting Goliath anymore. They looked like jealous outsiders trying to ruin a man's home. But let's not sugarcoat this. The wounds are still there. Even though the lawsuit fell apart, that doesn't mean the resentment disappeared. These were men who once called each other brothers, now divided by contracts and cash. That kind of fallout doesn't just vanish into thin air. And Katt Williams, by calling it out, was reminding the world that these old feuds can resurface at any moment. Think about hip-hop history. How many crews have we seen fall apart under the weight of fame? From NWA to G-Unit, from Cash Money to Death Row, brotherhoods often end up in ashes when the spotlight gets too bright. The St. Lunatics might not be topping charts anymore, but their story fits the same pattern. Betrayal, lawsuits, bitterness. It's a cycle that rarely ends peacefully. And here's the haunting part. Katt didn't just bring up Nelly. He compared him to Jay-Z. He hinted that what protected Jay-Z from bigger legal trouble wasn't just his lawyers. It was the structure of his personal life, a stable marriage, a strong family image, that shielded him from being torn apart the way so many others have been. And Katt was essentially warning that without Ashanti, Nelly could have been another casualty of the industry. So while the lawsuit may have disappeared, the danger hasn't. The industry doesn't forget. Old allies turned enemies have long memories, and bitterness in hip-hop often finds a way to resurface, sometimes in lyrics, sometimes in interviews, and sometimes in courtrooms. The question we need to ask now is Nelly really safe? Or has he just postponed the inevitable? Because if history tells us anything, it's that unfinished business in the music world always finds its way back to the surface. When Katt Williams talks, people listen. Not because he's the most politically correct, but because he's brutally honest. And in his explosive commentary about Nelly's lawsuit, his marriage, and his future, Katt left us with more questions than answers. But one thing was crystal clear. Without Ashanti, Nelly's story could have ended very differently. Let's pause and think about that. How many artists have we seen chewed up and spit out by the industry? Careers ruined, reputations dragged, legacies destroyed. Not always because they lacked talent, but because they lacked protection. And for Nelly, Ashanti wasn't just love, she was a shield. She gave him stability, credibility, and most importantly, something bigger to live for than ego or industry beefs. Katt wasn't just giving gossip, he was giving a blueprint. He was saying, look at Nelly, look at Jay-Z. Family can save you in a world designed to see you fall. Without that anchor, the storms of lawsuits, conspiracies, and social media takedowns can swallow you whole. And if you've been watching the hip-hop world, you know exactly how quick that downfall can be. But here's the chilling question. Is that shield unbreakable? Because while Ashanti and Baby KK may have saved Nelly this time, what happens if new enemies rise? What happens if someone digs deeper, harder, determined to take him down? Katt suggested the St. Lunatics weren't the only ones who wanted to see Nelly crumble. There were whispers of other celebrities, industry insiders, even powerful figures who could have used his downfall to fuel their own gain. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, just remember, this is hip-hop. This is entertainment. Betrayal isn't the exception. It's the rule. Contracts get twisted, friendships sour, and the higher you climb, the more people want to see you fall. Nelly has already been targeted once. Who's to say it won't happen again? But then again, maybe that's the point Katt was really making. Maybe what protects Nelly isn't the absence of enemies, but the presence of family. Maybe Ashanti and their baby aren't just his anchor, they're his immunity. They keep him grounded, untouchable, and less vulnerable to the kind of traps that have swallowed others whole. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. Legacy. Because at the end of the day, lawsuits fade, feuds die down, and scandals get replaced by the next headline. But family? Family lasts. And that's what Katt Williams seemed to be celebrating in his own blunt way. Nelly choosing love, choosing Ashanti, choosing fatherhood over chaos. That choice might be the very reason he's still standing strong in 2025. So where does this leave us? With a reminder, a warning, and maybe even some inspiration. Nelly dodged what could have been a career-ending moment because of loyalty, love, and timing. But the game doesn't sleep. And as long as there are contracts, money, and power involved, the risk of betrayal will always linger in the background. For now, though, Nelly stands tall. The lawsuit is gone. The charges are dropped. The conspiracies didn't stick. And instead of headlines about destruction, we're talking about survival, redemption, and yes, black love at its strongest. Ashanti and baby KK didn't just save Nelly's family. They may have saved his entire legacy. But tell me what you think. Was Katt Williams exposing the truth about what really goes on behind the scenes? Or was he stirring the pot for attention? And more importantly, do you think Nelly is truly safe now? Or is this just the calm before another storm? Stay locked in, because if there's one thing the industry has taught us, it's this: nothing stays buried forever.